So another rumor started spreading yesterday, rumor leak, whatever you want to call it. This came from also Jason Schreier, but basically it was suggesting specifically that Elder Scrolls 6 was at least 2 years from release. And this happened when he was speaking on a podcast during or I guess you could call it a podcast, but it was a Bloomberg Live Q&A where people could ask questions directly. And somebody asked about Elder Scrolls 6 specifically. And what Jason said was that he had heard through the grapevine and from his sources that Elder Scrolls 6 was still at least 2 to 3 years away, at least, potentially more. 2 to 3, at least. Can you imagine? Dude, there were people saying not that long ago that Elder Scrolls 6 was launching this year. There were people that actually thought it would be like a surprise drop at the summer show and drop in November. And it looks like it's not coming until 2028 or 2029. Now, my prediction has been 2028. It's been that for a while. You guys know I talk about it all the time. You can't get me to stop talking about it. But it seems like now Jason is even suggesting that it's 2 to 3, so 28 or 29 at least, like at the minimum. It probably or possibly goes deeper and later, but like that's the range that's being talked about by devs internally. Now, this also pairs with news that dropped, of course, earlier today, which was specifically Jason Schreier also doing an article describing how Obsidian has been kind of retooled. They are stopping work on Avowed's sequel. They are stopping work on some of the other stuff that they were doing. And now Obsidian is going to work on a Fallout game. This seems to be the broader approach and strategy from Asha, which is to double down on the big IP, specifically double down on the big IP and try to expedite, let's say, the production on those. I wouldn't be surprised if this also affects Elder Scrolls. Now, how that actually does affect Elder Scrolls remains to be seen because BGS is behind it. And so, like, what can they realistically do to speed it up? I don't know, frankly. 3 of 30. I mean, oh my God, I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't know what she could do to expedite it. I mean, you throw more money at them. I think pretty clearly, I would argue BGS has not done a great job of managing budgets and managing timeframes. But I think that all of this is compounded by a company culture that is coming from on high. It's coming from Todd. And I think that there has to be a pretty major reset within that. And I'm not sure that Todd's going to be too thrilled about it. But I showed earlier in the stream this clip from an interview that Todd did with Mr. Matty Plays, where he describes how he's okay with people going long lengths of time between receiving information about stuff. And that he wants people to really take their time and really, like, I think what he said specifically is it's okay to miss things. I'll just let Matty lead into this question. And he was asking in the context of course, Fallout, which is of course a big focus for Xbox right now. But what Todd's going to describe is a broader approach towards franchise management and pacing that applies to Fallout and Elder Scrolls. Because again, before Asha comes in and like forces them to expedite, the approach has been we get to it when we get to it. Fallout launches in 2035 with Fallout 5, and that is what it is. Deal with it, loser. Like, that's kind of how they approach it. Same with Elder Scrolls. Elder Scrolls 6 comes when it comes. So if it launches a solid, if it launches 2030, 19 years after Skyrim? 18 years? I mean, even if it's 17 years and it launches in 2028, that's still insane. Okay, that's still insane. Like, there is actually a quantifiable number of people who will literally die of old age, who were fans of the franchise and have gone into their elder years and now cannot play the next one. Like, you're taking so long, your fan base is literally dying of old age. Like, what are we doing? But I'll let Todd describe his approach to this, and I want you to listen to it because, again, this whole mentality that Todd's espousing, I think, is whether he likes it or not, I think it's going to be abandoned by hook or by crook by Asha. I think she's going to come in and be like, no, you're gonna deal with it. Is that the saying, hook or by crook? I know it has to do with shepherds, but what's the crook part? What does that mean? The hook is like the shepherd's hook, but what is the crook? Does that mean like you kill the I don't know. I should learn what sayings mean before I say them, shouldn't I? Anyway, listen.
Like, it seemed like when I listened to your interview with Kind of Funny, there are some things in motion with Fallout. I doubt you can specify here today, but it seems like for a lot of fans, the frustration is like, well, why were we waiting in the first place? Like, it was already pretty big and established and successful. Was it like seeking partners? Like, what's going on with the potential New Vegas 2? Like, what's the feel with moving forward with Fallout?
And you can also swap out Fallout with pretty much all of this with Elder Scrolls, and it also applies.
Well, look, first, I agree with the statement that Fallout's never been more popular. Okay. And looking at the number of players coming to those games, obviously the popularity of the TV show. So when, we give a lot of thought to kind of franchise management. I spend a lot of time thinking about franchises I love, what I've seen out there in terms of content. And so for us, it's sort of game planning out, number one, making sure Fallout is relevant in
Elder
the world.
Scrolls is relevant.
And I think, well, clearly it is. And
check.
People are hungry for even more. We've never stopped doing, Fallout work.
We've never stopped doing Elder Scrolls work. We have Elder Scrolls Online.
A lot of that work goes on, obviously, in Fallout 76.
In ESO and our mobile game Blades, which I just realized they shut down. They still have the Castles spin-off game. I think that's still up, but maybe that's also shut down. I don't know.
We have the Skyline Valley update out today.
Yeah.
And so really, really excited with where that game is at. Feel really fortunate, and the team so proud of the work that's been done there. And then for other Fallout games in the future, obviously I can't talk about those right now, but I would say sort of rushing through them, or we need to get stuff out that is different than the work we're doing in 76. We don't feel like.
So get stuff out, hurry to like hustle to get it done. And stuff specifically he frames that is not what we're doing in Fallout 76. He sees no need to do stuff other than what they're doing in Fallout 76 to keep Fallout fans at bay.
And
then this also applies to Elder Scrolls. We don't see the need to like expedite with other stuff.
Need to rush any of that. Right now, the Fallout TV show fills a certain niche in terms of the franchise and storytelling. Totally get the desire for a new kind of mainline single player game. And look, those things take time. I don't think it's bad for people to miss things.
That is really easy to say when the company is healthy, when things are good. But the moment that your company starts imploding financially, you just can't really say. Like you can't really say, I think it's okay for people to miss things. Todd, it's been 17 years, friend. Since by the time it launches, minimum 17 years. That's insane. That's crazy. That's stupid. Okay? That's crazy. That's not just missing something. That's forgetting it. Okay? That's forgetting it. There are people who will be able to play Fallout 5 who were not born when Fallout 4 launched. Like I said, 20 years between major franchise releases means that there's going to be people who literally they were fans of it when they were 50 or in their 50s. And then they get in their 70s. They may pass away from old age related illnesses by the time the sequel comes. That's ridiculous. Back in the day, you remember the reason why Fallout New Vegas happened was because Robert Altman, the guy in charge of ZeniMax, he was looking at their lineup and he said, golly, man, Fallout 3 just launched in 2008. You're going to do Skyrim in 2011, and then Fallout 4 isn't going to come until 2015. That's 7 years without a Fallout game. That is way too long. So Robert Altman said, I'm going to get these guys. They work over at Obsidian. They do great work. We're going to give them the rights to the IP. We'll let them do a spinoff. They'll put it out in 2010. Get a game between the two. Easy. It's cheap to make. Fans will have something to tide them over until Fallout 4. He thought 7 years was too much. It's been 8 since the announcement of Elder Scrolls 6. They announced that in June of 2018. It has been 8 years since they announced Elder Scrolls 6 with the trailer. And Robert Altman back in the day thought 7 was too much for having to wait between games. That's insane. That's insane. So what's the point of all of this? Well, the reporting is now that, it's the timeline is currently 2028 to 2029. And I think that Asha is going to be totally intolerant of those timelines moving forward. Okay. Assuming she's still in position in like 3-4 years. I don't think she's going to put up with that. Now the reporting is coming out that she's having Obsidian work on a Fallout project. I think the one that makes most sense, of course, is Fallout New Vegas Remake. Have them start with that, and then you can do spin-off games after that. But New Vegas Remake is such a layup. You'll get easy brownie points. That'll work. I would not be surprised if she's also entertaining the possibility of other Elder Scrolls spin-off content that we are not aware of. So, for example, we got reporting that about half of the team that works on Elder Scrolls Online was laid off in the first wave of layoffs that hit on Monday. A lot of people within the team are questioning, how do we support this MMO if half of our team is gone? It's almost like they don't want you to work on the MMO anymore. It might make more sense to Asha strategically to have that same team that's got experience with Elder Scrolls work on an Elder Scrolls spin-off game, to work on basically Elder Scrolls New Vegas, something smaller, tighter in the IP, in the franchise. They have experience with the IP, with working with BGS, but you can have smaller experiences that sprinkle in so you're not waiting so long between massive releases. And it seems amazingly enough that Asha is aware of something that Todd has hand-waved away for years, which is basically just the idea that the live service online games are not enough to satiate the demand. What players like you and me want when we say we want a Fallout game is different than what the Fallout 76 player wants and is okay with. Those expectations are different. Okay. It's different. And so I think Asha's realized that. And I don't know how profitable something like ESO is. Yes, ESO has a lot of players and they have microtransactions and they got stuff that's generating revenue, sure, or subscriptions and stuff like that. But it's also important to remember that MMOs are notoriously expensive to operate, like very expensive to operate. So it may not actually be that profitable at the end of the day. I mean, we saw the reporting Destiny 2, which had ridiculous player counts, was apparently almost never profitable. It was profitable like 2 quarters out of its entire lifespan, which is insane. Like it's crazy. So the players can just watch the show. Well, that's effectively what Todd said. What he said about Fallout is we have the Fallout show, which is filling a certain niche when it comes to storytelling within the franchise. Like the single player narrative games are what he also says are for telling the stories within and narrative storytelling within the franchise. So he sees the show as something that should satisfy the single player gamers. And this is why the fandom is frustrated, because they feel left behind. They feel abandoned. And I don't blame them when they have to wait 20 freaking years between releases, okay? It's okay to be upset and to be like, Todd, what is wrong with you? Like, what are we doing? That is definitely his focus. Well, I mean, at some point, he's telling you directly, when you ask about Fallout, he pivots and says Fallout 76. That is his focus. That's where he wants you to play if you're a Fallout fan. He doesn't see the need to put something else in there. Now, the person who does apparently is looking at it from a business perspective, and I think that's Asha, and she's looking at it and saying, our fans don't want to wait 20 years between games. And at some point, if they have to wait 20 years, by the time the sequel comes out, they may not be fans, quote unquote, anymore because they felt abandoned. You have to harbor fandoms. You have to build it and grow it and take care of it and nurture it. You don't get to take it for granted for 2 decades, which is apparently Todd's entire strategy, is to release a Fallout game, do a live service game for different players, leave it for 2 decades, and then get back to it and then act like you're supposed to just be like thanking them and groveling at their feet. I don't think that's how that works. Flip it on its head. Look at what like CDPR is doing. What are they doing? Their plan is to launch 3 Witcher games in like 6 years. I think it's 3 Witcher games and Cyberpunk's sequel within 6 years, I believe is the time frame, and a remake. Like they're expecting to crank this stuff out once they get firing on all cylinders. And that's their competition. No joke. If what Jason is saying is true, and if it's 2 to 3 years out minimum, let's say worst case scenario, it's 4 years out. They launch Elder Scrolls 6 in 2030. According to the current timelines, CDPR may, by that point, have launched The Witcher 4, The Witcher 1 remake, and potentially either The Witcher 5 or the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 between now and when they would launch Elder Scrolls 6. Like, your fans will leave, okay? Your fans will move over to another studio that makes it look like you're not even trying, because I'm not sure you are. If this is you firing on all cylinders, if this is you at your best, I'd hate to see you at your worst. I mean, my God, dude. My God. It's unacceptable. Now, there are some things I want to say. I saw this comment. I wanted to just touch on it. I really like Juicehead, and Juicehead makes fantastic videos. You should absolutely subscribe to him. Covers a lot of BGS, RPG stuff. But he said, I really don't agree with a lot of the Bethesda Game Studios criticism around their games taking too long. I agree that 15 plus years between releases is insane and should be addressed, but forcing BGS, the dev known for buggy releases, but otherwise very unique and special games, to work faster just seems like a recipe for disaster. We're going to circle back to this in just a second. You better believe me. Better believe me. BGS should be able to take their time and make special games. In my opinion, Xbox should have been utilizing the franchises with other developers. Give someone else a swing at an Elder Scrolls game, or hey, literally any of the studios who openly said they'd love to work on Fallout. Larian, Obsidian, a chance at a spinoff. Imagine Larian getting the keys to Fallout for like a top-down RPG, a true RPG. Bro. That would be insane. It's just like, process that for a minute. A Larian Fallout game that it's like, oh my God. I don't even want to think about it too much because it would be so great. Like it would make Fallout 5 not look like an RPG. I'll tell you what. Anyway, this I think though is the operative point in the problem. Okay. This is my point. Okay. I agree that 15 years between releases is insane and should be addressed. Okay. We're on the same page. That's insane. They should get games out faster, or at least sequels out faster. Compress that down. Maybe 3 franchises, is too much. Maybe you just alternate between the 2 before putting them on ice for a while. Maybe that's what you have to do. But okay, we're on the same page there. But forcing BGS, the dev known for buggy releases, but otherwise very unique and special games, to work faster just seems like a recipe for disaster. So I agree. BGS is a dev known for buggy releases and maybe lack of polish. And so forcing them to expedite seems like a recipe for disaster because they're just going to launch an even buggier game, an even worse optimized game, etc., etc. I think my point is that's the problem. The problem is their tech stack is not exactly industry leading. If anything, it's industry lagging. Like they actually consistently have some of the least impressive tech for games of this caliber and budget, certainly, when you compare it to the competition. They just do. Like, compare it to what you see with CDPR, with the Red Engine, with Cyberpunk, what you see with any studio using Unreal Engine for their open world games nowadays, what you see with even what what's the name of the studio that remade Oblivion? I'm blanking on it. But they even used an Unreal Engine wrapper over top of the Creation Engine and got the best of both worlds, Like, you look at what Larian's able to do. You look at what Warhorse was able to do with KCD2 and KCD1. Virtuos, thank you. What Crimson Desert, what Perlibis did with Crimson Desert, with the Black Space engine. You can see what's possible with cutting edge tech in 2026. And then you compare it with what Bethesda's doing with like Starfield, and it's pretty clear there's a gap. There's a gap. So I agree they're known for like lack of polish, for bugs, for lack of optimization and stuff. That's a problem. Like they shouldn't be known for that. That should be deemed unacceptable. I would argue that should just be deemed unacceptable, and that they should strive day in, day out to never be associated with those things ever again. So I agree that if they're forced to rush, they're probably going to get it buggy and things aren't going to run super well. That's a problem. Like that, we shouldn't just assume or accept, well, that's just how they are. That's just how they are. It's like I was going to invite my friend to play D&D with us, But he has this nasty habit of every time he eats pizza or any food at a public gathering, he just takes it and rubs it into the table as everybody's sitting at the table. And then he like throws it at other people at the table. So maybe we just don't get food for our game night that we're inviting him to. No, he shouldn't throw food at people and rub it into the table. Okay. Like we're skipping past the part where he shouldn't be doing the thing you're talking about. Like we should work around this thing. That's bad. Like, no, he shouldn't be doing that. Like the problem isn't the food. The problem is him doing that and throwing food at people. Okay. I'm hungry. You're right. I'm quite hungry. Feeling quite hungry. Jesus Christ be praised. I like this, I think is part of the problem, is that there is an assumption that BGS must stay this way forever, and they don't have to. Okay. If the company decided that this was unacceptable, there could be structural changes to address it. That's what CDPR did after the catastrophic collapse of Cyberpunk at launch, was that they went back and asked, why did this happen? And how do we make sure it never happens again? And then you evaluate it, they restructure everything, and they deliver Phantom Liberty to demonstrate we still got it. And they sure do. They figured it out and they fixed it. BGS has never fixed it. And I say this with love, Juicehead, because I love Juicehead. But I think a lot of it is because the fandom generally takes this approach where they just assume BGS will always be that way because they've always been that way. They don't have to be. That's my point. If Todd cared about polish and decided, no, we are going to launch our game and we're going to be seen as like the Naughty Dog of RPGs and of open world games. Like we're going to be seen as the guys with insane production quality and polish and optimization and cutting edge tech. We're going to invest heavily in that. That's what we're going to be known for. He could do it. Todd has more cachet than any other developer in all of Xbox. And he's in charge of two of the biggest and most profoundly important IP within all of Xbox. If he wanted to do that, he could, but he knows he doesn't have to. He knows he can launch Elder Scrolls 6 with load screens going into every single building, with pretty regular bugs, with unremarkable graphical fidelity, and with faces that look like they're made of toilet paper and resin, and that the fandom will still say, yeah, but it's Bethesda. What did you expect? What'd you expect? If you want better face animations and quality, turn on DLSS 5. Like, that's literally what the argument's going to be. And this is why they get away with it. And it's a constant problem, man. It's because there's just no real accountability at the end of the day. Like, it's just constant excuses for why it can't be better. They can't do any better than this. And at some point, I think you should pause and go, wait, they're supposed to be selling me the product. They're supposed to be like selling me on the idea that this is good. Why am I like making excuses for their mediocrity? You know, you shouldn't. That's not how this is supposed to work. So I understand what's being said here. I agree that 15 years is between releases is insane and should be addressed. And I agree that BGS being forced to expedite and given a tighter timeline probably means their games will launch buggier. I would argue that's precisely the problem. And that telling BGS, hey, you shouldn't need 7 years to get Elder Scrolls 6 out the door. That shouldn't mean, okay, well, it's going to launch and run like crap. Dude, you had 7 years. You have 6 years. That should not be seen as like, oh, well, we had to crunch and throw it together super fast. Like, you point back to New Vegas and it's literally like, Tony Stark made this in a cave with a box of scraps. That's literally, they made it in 18 months. The industry has changed a lot since then. So let's give them twice the time. You got 3 years to make it. Do you think they'd be able to do that? It might not run super well, might be a little buggy. Okay. But if the game is really good underneath it, I think people will catch up. We'll figure it out. But it's just, there's always, I don't know. I get perturbed because I feel like a lot of the time there are like excuses made to justify mediocrity within within a lot of companies, whether it's BGS or Ubisoft, where it's like, well, they have to have the in-game store with those skins because people buy them. It's like, well, okay. And that's how they pay a lot of the bills. Okay, well, if the game was even better, they would sell even more copies, and then maybe they wouldn't need to do that. And I think that might even be a better option. You know, like, just because something is that way, and that's been normal for a long time, doesn't mean it has to stay that way. You know, like you can ask for better. Is all I'm saying. Okay. But I think it's a good point. And honestly, I think Juicehead's right, because I agree. I don't think Todd is going to magically wake up and like overhaul the whole production pipeline of BGS to get their games super performant and optimized and all that. I don't think he's going to do that. I think Juice is right that realistically, if Asha comes in and says you got 1 year less than you did before, it probably just means that it's going to launch and be pretty buggy, and it's going to be even funnier to do the side-by-side comparisons to The Witcher 4. I think that's probably how it is. But I think it's because for 2 decades, BGS has been like treated as though they're like the toddler at the art fair. They come up with like the crayon drawing that doesn't look anything like what they say they drew, and everybody pats them on the head and says, "That's really good. Good job. So proud of you." That's okay when it's a toddler, but when it's a professional company that people have been like tasked with working on with millions and millions of dollars behind them, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. We shouldn't just assume because they're given a deadline that's reasonable that the game is going to be a broken mess. Like, that's sad that even fans of BGS are like, well, if you tell them they only have 6 years, it's going to be broken. You know, like, that's silly, but that's where we are. Shotgun, thank you for the very generous 20. Thank you. Oh, it cut off. Hold on. Shotgun, thank you for that very generous 20. Sorry, I'm 11 minutes behind. Shame about the ESO devs leaving. Game is just making a turn with new management that's taken over. They've been listening to a lot of fan feedback and making changes based on that. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad they're doing that. And like I said, I don't know if the actual strategy is to have them work on like an Elder Scrolls spin-off game, but I would not be shocked at all if in a couple of weeks we get news, or even this week we get news that ZeniMax Online is being rebranded as BGS, wherever they're based. I don't know where they're based, but BGS whatever the city is, and it's now Elder Scrolls spin-off studio, and they start working on basically New Vegas but Elder Scrolls. Honestly, probably plays a lot like Avowed, frankly. That would be my guess. But I think that that's probably what they're going to do. It just makes too much sense to me. Why would you lay off 50% of the MMO team unless you want to use that team for something else? If you want their game and that team just shut down, just fire the whole team, shut the studio down. But they didn't do that. They just scaled it down almost to like a pre-production, early production size. So you might have a skeleton crew working on the online game, keeping it alive for a little bit while the other team preps the Elder Scrolls game. I mean, I think it starts to make sense, but I don't understand the bottleneck personally. Is it the engine, the world, the graphics? I think that there's a number of bottlenecks within BGS that all compound together. The one and the best place you can go to listen to stuff about this, I've shouted him out many times before. You should absolutely go and sub. We've looked at clips and streams, but Kiwi Talks, this YouTube channel does amazing interviews with devs from all over the industry, including devs with people that like have worked at Rockstar on GTA, people that worked at Naughty Dog, people that work, and like devs talking about Todd Howard specifically. Like this, where is it? Oh, Kurt Coleman, writer, one of the like OG guys, designer on Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, 4, 76, and Starfield. Or Heather was a texture artist, later went on to work at, I believe, Naughty Dog, and also worked with Todd. And like they talk all about their experience with Todd. I actually think in this interview, yeah, I remember this. Fun fact, Heather mentions that Todd wanted to know what it was like to work with Neil Druckmann.
I'm not sure what it was, but he was just asking a lot of questions of like what it was like working with Neil, and what it was like working at Naughty Dog. And then I would run into him occasionally in the halls, and he'd ask how things are going with like the layered material system. So yeah, I don't know Neil. I don't know Todd very well.
You have someone
Which is interesting. The fact that Todd's like, Neil seems cool. What's he got? Can you tell me a little about him? I just want to know. I'm curious. I'm just curious. Anyway, but these interviews are fascinating if you want to know more about behind the scenes stuff and how it actually works and functions in the company in general. They'll really inform your opinion of the studio and how it works and functions, because a lot of their stories share very similar notes. And again, I think that it's mainly just that they need to do major overhauls to how the company functions and flows and how stuff gets done, but they've never done that. And so it's just caused a lot of bloat, I think. unfortunately. Will they ever cut Todd? Let's say they did. What do you see happening to BGS in the long term? I think the only way Todd would leave is if he were retiring. And if he retired, I think it would just be people like Emil that take over and get control. I think that's probably what it is. Yeah, I don't think it would magically like fix things if that's the point. I think actually a lot of the stats are pretty clear. Like the more involved in a game Todd is, according to like Metacritic scores and fan reactions and everything, the better it is. So the more involved Todd is, the better the game does. As he gets less involved, and you can track it based on these interviews and what he was working on at different times, as he gets less involved, the quality of the project drops. So Fallout 76, he was mainly working on pre-production on like Fallout or on Starfield, kind of drops off. Starfield, towards launch, he was getting really disconnected from it because he was doing executive production work on Indiana Jones and working on the Fallout TV show and stuff like that. He started to get less involved, and the secondary producers got more power, and Starfield also kind of falls off a little bit. So it seems like the more involved Todd is, the better the game is. It's just a matter of whether or not he can do that and whether or not it interests him. And that's one I just honestly don't know.
He took my thing.